On today's episode of Let's Spend Large Amounts of Money on Camera Equipment, we're looking at the Fujifilm 27mm F2.8 WR lens. But before we look at this, we might need a little context. Halfway through 2024, I packed up my life in Canada and I decided to move to New Zealand. We'd been working and saving for a long time, and instead of going straight to New Zealand, we decided to go through Europe. Photograph as much as I could while still enjoying the trip. It's really difficult as a photographer to not live through your lens, and I definitely was aware of that and conscious of that. Having said that, I did want to grab a lens that would kind of do everything for me while I was traveling. I landed on the 27mm f2.8 Fuji lens, the WR I think it is. Hell of a name, but it's also a hell of a lens. I wanted it compact, I wanted it light, something similar to my small film setup where you can just have it on you, fire it off, tuck it under your arm, walk away, and it's a simple setup. I wanted that for my digital camera because I knew that I was going to be shooting a lot, and I knew that I was potentially going to be walking into some areas that I didn't feel comfortable in, and maybe I just had to hide my camera quite quickly. And I try not to plague myself with gear acquisition syndrome, because in this day and age when you're constantly bombarded with things that you need to buy next on your lists, all these kinds of things, especially through social media and advertising, it's really easy to convince yourself that you need more gear, that you need this one extra piece of kit that's going to make you so much more proficient as a photographer. That's just not the case. The age-old theory of you should be able to shoot all of your great work with a 50mm lens, I still think to this day holds true. I'll wait for some arguments in the comments here, but you get what I'm saying. It's basically a concept where the gear doesn't define you as a photographer, your eye defines you as a photographer. I have realized that 50mm for me doesn't speak as loudly as some of the wider shots that I've taken. I've always been drawn to a 35mm lens, and this 27mm lens by Fuji is the equivalent of a 40mm full frame lens. I knew that I wanted something a little wider than 50, and I knew that I didn't want to have to crop in all my images to get a nice clean composition for like a portrait or something that's a mid shot. So the 27mm 2.8 Fuji lens really ticked that box for me. So for a few reasons, I pulled the trigger on the 27mm. I think it's the best size to function ratio. It's got a lot of character. The color saturation is great. I found it really sharp. It's light, it's compact. This is like encroaching on X100V territory small. By having one lens and almost one lens exclusively, you get to learn how it operates, you get to learn its strengths, and you also learn its weaknesses. So when you know its strengths and you know its weaknesses, you can play that to your advantage. For example, the strengths of this lens are that it's sharp, it's compact, it's lightweight, and it's built well. I've got the square hood lens hood for it, so that does help with protecting it a little. I have knocked it, I'm not proud of it, but I have knocked it once or twice. But they're strong. I'm pretty sure it's an aluminium casing, but either way, it's a strong lens, it's compact and it's light and it's sharp. They're the best things about it. What I don't like about it is that it has a loud autofocus. So I've got this on continuous autofocus for video. If I was to move in and out, this is filmed on a GoPro, but this is an example of what I'm talking about. Now, I don't know much about autofocus. I don't know if that's something to do with my camera or if it's something to do with my firmware or the motor in this lens, but I did buy it secondhand off eBay. I believe it's made in the Philippines, but it was shipped from someone who owned it in Japan. But the autofocus on my lens does sound loud, which means that for filming video, it's actually quite difficult to use unless you lock off focus. I'm not sure why this is, but when you manually focus this lens, you can hear the gearing turn. So if you're shooting delicate audio, you'll probably hear those gears turning if you're shooting video. But I didn't buy it for video, I bought it for stills, and it's an absolute banger. So the only other thing that I don't like about this lens is it sometimes misfocuses when you've got it on autofocus. This could be user error. I doubt that it is, but it could be. With my film photography, because all my kit is manual, I'll often focus, recompose, and shoot. If I'm trying to get someone walking or anticipate a shot. But the possibility of it misfocusing or just being a little soft is actually quite common, more common than I'd like. Being digital, it's no big deal, you can just keep shooting, but sometimes I won't notice it until I go through and review the images. That's something to note. It definitely has misfocused a couple of times on shots that I've really been happy with as well, and now they're basically unusable unless I post them on Instagram, which I'm trying to do less of. But if I was to make a massive print, you would definitely tell that they're quite soft. But all in all, for the price, I think I paid 550 Canadian dollars at the time. It's an incredible lens. It allows me to have a camera on me at all times. It allows me to shoot a wide and a tight viewing angle. So I can still get portraits without distorting faces too much, and I can still shoot scenes that allow the subjects that I'm shooting to be in an environment that's recognizable. And that's super important to me, especially because a lot of my work is street and lifestyle based, where I'm not exactly sure what I'm shooting until I'm there. So for that reason, this is an incredible lens, and I would absolutely recommend, if you're considering buying one, to pull the trigger on it. If you don't love it, you can always just move it on. So in conclusion, should you buy this lens? I'll never tell someone else how to live their life, but I did, and I love it. I'm gonna get back to my other project, which I'll talk more about on this channel very shortly. Again, thanks for tuning in, thanks for watching. Don't forget to tell your friends you love them. Peace. Yeah, that's basically unusable for video.